Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to what are we calling these things? Disney Park updates from laughingplace.com. I'm co-founder Rebekah Mosley with my husband, co-founder Doobie. We're also joined by our West Coast correspondent and Star Wars managing editor, I think is what his title is, Mike Celestino, and our East Coast correspondent and world traveler, Jeremiah.
Great. I need that one.
We're just going to kind of discuss what the stories have been this week in the world of Disney parks. And
can I start real quick?
Go ahead.
So Benji, who normally leads these, wasn't available today, so he asked me to take care of it. And I'm like, oh, great. You give me one where there is absolutely nothing new to talk about. Just yesterday, we already did a special one for the Disneyland delay, and now there's no news the next day, and yet we have to do a scheduled show. So thanks a lot. And then Disney comes through.
Yes, they did. And they announced that Splash Mountain will be reimagined to the story of Princess and the Frog. However, it's going to be the storyline will take place after the movie's final kiss. We're going to join Princess Tiana and Louis on a musical adventure with music from the film as they prepare for their first ever Mardi Gras performance. There's some of the concept art that they were sharing with us today. I don't know exactly what to say other than I'm excited because my Disney journey, my Disneyland parks fan journey has been a little bit different than a lot of people in that for me, the parks have always been a place of change. My favorite attraction when I was little was Adventures Through Inner Space. And then shortly after that, it changed and it became Star Tours, which is epic. And I loved America Sings, but then it went away. And those characters moved over to Splash Mountain where I could kind of see them and remember how much I had loved that attraction. And so, and even before that, the Matterhorn added Harold, right? He wasn't there on my first trip to Disneyland, even though I wouldn't have ridden the Matterhorn then. I was too scared. But, so for me, it's like Disneyland, seeing Disneyland change, making changes to attractions. It's exciting. Princess Tiana has been wildly popular. So I'm excited. How about you guys?
Here's my first question.
Okay.
I've seen people calling Splash Mountain a classic on Twitter, and then I've seen people complaining about the people calling Splash Mountain a classic because it's only, a little over 30 years old. How old does a ride or attraction have to be a classic?
It is definitely a classic.
First of all, it was a classic on day one because Splash Mountain.
Of Ernest.
But even aside, it's been around what? I mean, I hate to tell you this, Mike, but 1989 was more than 30 years ago. So you're a classic.
31. Okay. I'll give you 31.
Jeremiah, Mike, do you guys remember the arrival of Splash Mountain? Was that part of your Disneyland guest?
I have a whole story. So, Mike, you answer this first.
I remember the commercials when I was a kid, and I didn't go to Disneyland in California until I was 17 years old. So I would have gone on the Magic Kingdom version first. And I don't remember the first time going on that, but it's always been one of my favorite rides on either coast. Although I'll say that the attraction that inspired Splash Mountain, the attraction that inspired Splash Mountain, called Timber Mountain Log Ride at Knott's Berry Farm, is my favorite theme park attraction of all time. So there you have it. I'm cool with that one.
Really? Wow, so this is just a poor imitation.
And
ask,
for me,
ask Tony Baxter about it.
Before Jeremiah shares his story, for me, Splash Mountain was my introduction to the concept of a soft opening, because we were at Disneyland and we were walking by and it was like, whoa, wait, there's people in line. And so we got in line, and as it turned out, the people in line, the family directly ahead of us had been in line for, I think they said 3 hours, while we only waited about 45, because it was one of those, it opens and closes and they would let you leave the line if you wanted and that kind of thing. And so it was like that was my introduction to the idea that, oh, what? The opening date isn't the actual opening date. It's the grand opening date.
Right. Much like Disneyland itself, which we all say is July 17th, but that was just a soft opening for July 18th, the public opening.
Correct. What is your? Are you gonna share your story, Jeremiah?
Yes. So if I hit share screen, can I bring up a photo, Doobie?
I believe so. Give it a shot.
he'll share the wrong tab.
Let me stop sharing first.
I know.
Right, try it now. Right now, remember, Splash Mountain.
Okay, I'm just going to send this over to you, Doobie.
Safety first, you know.
Okay, I'll ask, while we wait for that, I'll ask you guys. Given that they are telling us that the story, go ahead, Doob.
I just wanted to give a couple of quick basics.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They've not given a time frame, so they've announced it, but they haven't said when it's going to open. They have said when Disney parks reopen next month for Disney World and who knows for Disneyland, that the current Splash Mountain will be reopening with it. And yeah, just wanted to make sure I gave those time frames.
Did that make it through to you, Doobie?
Yeah. So keep talking. I'm working on it.
So the question I'm going to ask you guys is, since they're saying that this moment will have this story will pick up after the final kiss, will we see Facilier, or I mean,
probably.
Because I can't remember exactly kind of what his status is at the end of the film, but I know that he is a wildly popular villain, so yeah. I have to imagine that you'd want him there.
He disappeared into the dark side, or the friends on the other side at the end. That's kind of where he just disappears to. And I was having the conversation just a little bit ago about Ray, and Ray, spoiler, died in the movie. So I'm guessing at some point they will reference Ray in a star scene or something fun like that.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Okay,
so my story. That right there is, I want to say 1987. And I'm at Disneyland, little kid with a little Kodak Instamatic. And that's my picture of Splash Mountain just after it had been topped off. Fast forward to 88 when it was supposed to open in December. And they were having all the problems because originally people were getting far too wet. Okay. So 1989 rolls around. They still don't have an opening date. Well, they have an opening date of July 17th. I go there on the 4th of July with my family. I know, worst idea ever. My best friend and I at the time are standing in line at Pirates of the Caribbean. I can even remember we're outside just by where they had the beignets, or where they had the beignets, whatever it is now, the window. And this kid comes and jumps in line with his parents, soaked to the bone. And my friend and I are like, what? And we hear him start talking to his parents about he just rode the greatest ride ever. And we're like, what? That's not open yet. Don't be silly. So we get off, we walk over, and we see Splash Mountain running. Okay, we get excited. We go get in line. We were just before you go where the turnstiles are still. I don't remember if they've taken them out at Disneyland yet or not. The ride shuts down. We wait 4 hours from the time that it shut down. Like, we were moving through the queue pretty quickly. We get inside the mountain because people are leaving. We found that they had installed air conditioning tubes. We found those, like, people weren't moving. So we started kind of like all gathering around like it was a heater in the coldest day ever. We're all underneath the air. Finally get on the ride. Loved it. Couldn't stop raving about it. I don't even remember how old I was at this time. 15. So it's okay. You're there with your parents. So they set up a time, because we didn't have cell phones or anything, of where we needed to meet. Go over, we meet my mom, and my mom starts to tell me how great Splash Mountain was for them, because it was hot. They got in line. They made it around the front before you do the first hill or the second hill, and were splashing each other. Shut down the attraction, got escorted off the attraction, almost got kicked out of the park because they were told not to splash. And these are the adults that I'm with. We put together the timeline. I waited 4 hours because my mother was splashing on the ride and got kicked off.
Good story. Good
And
story.
the other great part was my sister was about an hour behind me in line, as I found out later. So that was my first experience on the 4th of July, 1989, a couple of weeks before it opened. And Splash Mountain, to me, like, I've ridden it, as you said, I'm the world traveler. I've ridden it in Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and Tokyo. And it's by far one of my all-time favorite attractions.
My favorite part of that story is when Jeremiah goes to the park with his family, they immediately split up so they don't have to do
Oh, God, yes.
Among the announcement, they also included some of the reactions of the cast of the film, and I particularly enjoyed Jennifer Lewis's remark. She said, recording Mama Odie's "Dig a Little Deeper." She said, it must have taken 100 takes because I wanted it to be perfect. The image of Mama Odie in the fairy godmother role truly captures the New Orleans Black Bayou tradition of the revered wise woman. I'm thrilled that the Princess and the Frog is being honored for the joy it has brought millions of Disney fans, and that just made my heart happy. I'm excited. So yeah.
Jennifer Quinn makes a good point, something we did not mention yet. One Disney legend and window on Main Street renter, leaser, recipient,
honoree,
Tony Baxter.
I want to see how much he has to pay for rent for it.
Exactly.
He's going to be a creative consultant on the attraction, which makes sense because he is pretty much credited with being as much as one Imagineer can be the creator of an attraction, he would be that for Splash Mountain. So, yay, Tony, a huge fan favorite. I personally know him, which means absolutely nothing. So, I'm happy to hear that bit of news. So, beyond that, what do you guys, are you guys excited? I mean, Jeremiah, this is your favorite. Mike, just for the record, Mike, you said you didn't think this was a classic. I think it's necessary for you to see this. There's no way this is modern, ergo, this is a classic.
Oh, I didn't say it wasn't a classic. I was asking the question if it was a classic.
So this is, you offer this as proof that it's a classic? I'm not.
Why does the one with the polka dots look like it's out of Bedrock or something? That dress.
She was working at Universal before this. So.
Yes.
Oh, I think it's going for like the Adventures on the Riverfront look, the outfit, right? That's what we're going for there.
Yeah, because the boy kind of has the overalls like Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, so we're going for the Adventures on the Riverfront. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Jazz hands. That's very apparent.
Oh, very nice.
What do you guys think? Are you guys excited about Tiana moving into town?
Mike?
Yeah, I'll say that this news wasn't surprising to me, much in the same way that the recent changes to my favorite attraction, Pirates of the Caribbean, were not surprising to me. Every time I would go through that attraction and the bride auction scene was still there, I would think, I can't fathom how that has lasted this long. So when that announcement got made, I was not surprised. And I kind of have been thinking the same thing about Splash Mountain for years now. Like, just, no personal preference either way, but just thinking, like, surprised that there's still an attraction based on the movie Song of the South in Disney parks. That's just surprising to me. So yeah, I wasn't taken aback by this, especially after all of the discussion around it lately and the petitions and everything, although Disney has said that this has been in the works for a while now. And the concept art looks really nice. If they don't skimp on the budget for this project, I'm sure it'll turn out really nice. I'm sure it'll have a really nice atmosphere, especially if they add some stuff outside the perimeter of the attraction itself to kind of immerse you in the world of that movie. I think it could be really nice and really atmospheric and moody in the way that, the movie gets across that period of New Orleans, kind of having to expand New Orleans Square a little bit to the north from where it ends past the Haunted Mansion now up into Critter Country. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with it for sure.
Is there any way they can make Pooh fit into Galaxy's Edge? That way they can just get rid of Critter Country altogether?
Well, did you see in our group chat, did you see, Doobie, that our own Laughing Place Cole was talking about how it should be an Endor ride so that you transition from the Bayou to Endor and then off into Galaxy's Edge? I was like, oh.
Dagobah.
I'm on
Well,
that.
What the connection is between Galaxy's Edge and Winnie the Pooh is Jim Cummings. So you just get him to do the Hondo voice over many adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and there you go.
That connects to
Jeremiah,
yes, sir.
You do think this attraction is a classic, but you're still excited about Tiana?
I'm excited for the same reason that I was excited that Maelstrom became Frozen Ever After, or Great Movie Ride became Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, or any of the attractions in the past 65 years almost have transitioned into something new. I'm a firm believer in that rarely quoted Walt that the park isn't a museum. If you think about it, if it wasn't for Carousel of Progress closing, we wouldn't have had America Sings. And if it wasn't for America Sings closing, we wouldn't have had Splash Mountain and kind of in the same way Star Tours. And if America Sings hadn't closed, then we wouldn't have had Interventions. Okay, I should have stopped earlier in that.
Quit while you're ahead.
But I am going to miss Splash Mountain to no end. Like, just like with you, Doobie, it is one of my all-time favorites. I do look forward to the fact that I can go to Tokyo, and I'm also a firm believer that attractions shouldn't be repeated in every single park so there's a specific reason to go to the park. But I'm going to miss it a lot. I don't know who's echoing here.
I want to agree with you and say that, Splash Mountain is definitely like top 5 for me at Disneyland. But I also would add that I don't know how much of my love for Splash Mountain comes out of the characters and the story that are in the ride as much as it is like the engineering of track layout and the theming and the landscaping of the whole thing. So in my head, that can kind of be I'll be transposed and not affect me and my love of that attraction all that much. But maybe that's just me being very selfish. Maybe people are attached to the characters of Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear and Brer Fox in the way that I'm not. I don't know.
I would say
I'll go. I think that that you may be looking at it more through a telescope, Mike, because you'd never experienced the America Sings. Because I know Doobie and Rebekah and I all experienced America Sings. So those characters, while they're not specifically, it's Song of the South, it's for us, we've known these characters since we were kids, hearing them sing out-of-date songs when we were kids.
Right. Songs that helped me score incredibly well in my music appreciation classes throughout school. Yes.
So I love Splash Mountain. To me, it's like, even more than my personal love for it, I think it's one of the most perfect rides Disney's created, just the theming from start to finish. Pretty close to perfect. I remember when I first got my annual pass, I'd pass Disneyland on the way to work, and I would literally park, premium parking back then, run to the back of the park, ride Splash Mountain, and then continue on to work. It's pretty perfect. And so for that reason, I'm sad to see it go. And yet, if Maelstrom is any indication, they're going to do a good job with this next phase, and I'm very much looking forward to see it even improve further. But if it doesn't, then I'm going to be upset.
Mike C brought up something I hadn't even thought about, and that is how it's going to impact its environment. I hadn't even thought about just the visual of Splash Mountain and how it provides a certain atmosphere when you're on the Rivers of America, the visual of that enormous briar patch and just things like that. It'll be very interesting to see what that does to the landscape of Disneyland and also in Florida, what it does there, because it isn't in the same way. A lot of times with these transitions, it doesn't have that kind of impact. When Maelstrom became Frozen Ever After, it wasn't like as you walk through Epcot, my experience has transitioned greatly. It wasn't really until you entered that your experience had changed. So this will be fun. Has this happened? I guess Tower of Terror would be another example of that, where it also impacts your experience outside of the ride.
And they changed it.
I'll also say that the thing that I'll probably miss the most is the music, not only on the attraction itself, but the music that plays when you're in that little outside canal area going around the bend there. That's the first thing I always hear when I get to Disneyland and park at Mickey and Friends parking structure, and I walk through, especially now on that pedestrian bridge there, walking through the downtown Disney parking lot. You can hear that music coming from Splash Mountain, which is right across Disneyland Way there. Is that the name of that street? Because the attraction's like right behind those trees, and you can just hear it like bleeding. So it's always the first thing I hear in the morning when I get to the park, and then the last thing I hear when I'm walking back to my car at the end of the day. And it just makes me think of Disneyland in that way.
So Doobie, before we change topics, can you bring up the concept art one more time?
Yeah, I can, because I'm very good at the technical aspects here.
I know you are. So I think that this was originally supposed to be at Typhoon Lagoon, and this was a retheme for that. Because if you look at the very top of Chickapin Hill, the tree has a boat in it. It is. Look.
Yeah,
I see what you see. And I'm just like, no, wrong.
I want to know. I'm looking forward to the story and how it continues. And it could be multiple years away, but at the same time, I can't wait for it.
I agree, Michaela. Michaela says, I'm hoping that they keep some of our animal friends somehow, but I'm also really excited to see some new technology and animatronics. There's so much physical space there to play with. And I mean, we've been seeing the videos of Belle happening over in Tokyo, and just the notion of the movement and the dance and the rhythm and all that beauty that was part of what made The Princess and the Frog so much fun. The notion that excitement and enthusiasm, that beauty of movement that they can explore, I'm excited. So we'll see. We ready to move on for their
Let's move on. Tiana, we can't wait to write your attraction. Not on purpose. So the even huger news yesterday, but we did a whole separate
huger news.
Huger
news. Okay.
Or huge. But we did a show on it yesterday, so we'll just touch on today. Was the fact that Disneyland's reopening has been officially delayed indefinitely. It was going to be July 17th, which is a familiar date. Oh yeah, Disneyland soft opening date. But instead, it's been pushed back indefinitely because the state is not given guidance on opening theme parks. They won't be doing that prior to July 4, and Disney says they need more time than that to get their whole cast ready. So if you want to hear a whole lot more about that, just tune in or go check out yesterday's special edition of the Disney update. But we did want to mention that today. But however, the Orlando Sentinel reported this morning that Disney is saying this will not affect the schedule for the reopening of Walt Disney World, which is currently scheduled for July 11th.
11th, yes, July 11th and 15th.
So obviously, everything is subject to change because there are bigger matters at work here. But at least as of right now, Disney World schedule has not changed. So in other theme park news, the Disney Cruise Lines today came out with an announcement of a new booking system to give more flexibility for people. They're calling it their temporary date flexibility option. So for people that book a cruise by August 31st, and that includes people that have already booked, for sailings through March of next year, you have up to 15 days prior to your cruise to change it, and you can change it all the way out through April of 2022. So that's a lot of flexibility. And if you've booked a cruise before, you know there's normally nowhere near that much flexibility on cancellation and changes. So they obviously want people to feel comfortable and confident in booking, but depending on what happens with circumstances, know that they have up until basically 2 weeks before the cruise to make some changes. So Disney for that move. Any thoughts on either of those before we move on? Our fine panel.
I'm just excited to see them embrace the reality of right now. As a tourist, you want that flexibility because you don't feel confident. You make plans thinking the best is going to happen ahead, but as we've seen, we felt like COVID was on a certain path, and now it seems like it may be on a different one. So you don't want to feel like you're locked in today, months ahead, because you don't necessarily know what the picture's going to look like just, a month or two or whatever, down the road. So yeah, no, I'm just, like you say, it's a good move, and it's a way to keep people thinking about it, because if you feel like you can't plan for it, then you're just going to set it aside. And this leaves it where at least you feel like you can think about it because you know you aren't locked into it. So, which is nice. I like hope. I like to have something to plan
and if you're confused by all of this, Mouse Fan Travel, our sponsor, is a great place to go because they can help you out with all this booking. Because
Yes.
I know, as somebody who's booked vacations for many years, all of this just makes my head explode right now.
Exactly.
Highly recommend Becky and the folks over at Mouse Fan Travel. They do such a wonderful job. The official travel partner of laughingplace.com. Our other little tidbit regarding reopening is Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea. They're actually opening soon. They're within a week? July 3rd.
Next week.
They're going to be opening. So that's really exciting. And obviously, you're going to stay tuned to Laughing Place when that happens. We tend to do a pretty good article covering whatever opening festivities and social images and videos and such. Have you ever been to Tokyo, Mike? I know I haven't. Rebekah hasn't. I know the guy in the bottom right corner has.
Yes, I have.
Oh my goodness, I'm so silly. I was thinking Disney Sea. How about that?
Okay, I haven't been to Disney Sea. I spent about a week in Tokyo as a graduation present when I was in high school. So
sorry.
And he forgot that part of that was a trip to Tokyo Disneyland. Go ahead.
Disneyland Paris is the only overseas Disney resort that I've been to so
Are
far.
you like most Disney fans in that you see Disney Sea as like a mecca you can't wait to get to?
I'm really, really anxious to get there someday. Yeah, everything I've heard is that it's just incredible. So
it's
high on my
mind-blowing.
list.
I do. Yeah. Same.
Hey.
All right. Okay.
Making sure you know how everything works, huh?
Huh?
Said making sure you know how everything works.
Doobie's
I like
becoming
that.
the pro of this.
I'll get a higher res logo for next time, but yeah, gotta
There you go.
promote our peeps. They are great. They've supported us forever, and we're happy to support them as well.
And
All right.
you know what? Right now, whenever I see my friend, not my friends, I shouldn't say my friends. It is my friends, but it's Facebook friends. So it's like people I don't really totally know, but they're my friends. It's odd. But when I see all these posts by people who say how they've been on hold for like hours and all this, I'm thinking, Mouse Fan Travel would have been on hold for you. It's all good. This is why you have them help you out with all this stuff, so you can relax a bit more. Or they can help you out and maybe call it better times and all that kind of thing. So they know that stuff.
And then I think the last thing, or the other thing we wanted to discuss is just a little bit more about what it's like to have one of the four of us has actually been in a Disney resort. Two of them, actually.
Not me. Nope. You.
That one. Since it's reopened.
Yeah.
We're general with the door up there. Has been in a Disney resort, and we talked a little bit about it before. I want to talk more about it. I want to hear about breakfast because I saw a Mickey waffle. I want to hear about seeing that beautiful sunset you took a picture of, and then I want to talk about the buses. So why don't you tell us a little bit about staying at Disney?
Staying at Disney right now is a little creepy. And I only say that because I walked into the lobby of Bay Lake Tower and there were 7 cast members there waiting to greet me. And there were 3 outside because they still had bell service. They still had 2 for the check-in. They had somebody at the tech table to help out with the magic bands and your phone and everything. But the cast was amazing. And Bay Lake Tower, we talked last week about Hilton Head I'm sorry, Vero Beach. I keep saying Hilton Head. Vero Beach, which again was just a beautiful beach resort. So I saw the beach a lot, but Bay Lake Tower. So I talked about this the other day. Driving down the tunnel underneath the waterway and seeing the castle for the first time. And I haven't even driven on property to see the castle since the last day of resort operation. Wow. So seeing the castle was a wow. I think, Mike, you said the same thing when you saw the Matterhorn when you were driving there, how you almost cried.
Yeah.
I definitely let out an audible wow at not only seeing the castle, but seeing the new colors on the castle. And if you have questions or want to see any of the colors, please go to our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, our laughingplace.com, because we have all the pictures up and you can express your opinions left and right about if you like it or not, because that's the number one topic we've had. To me, it was beautiful. Yes, it's not the gray that it has been, but I'm guessing Doobie's trying to bring up a picture because he looks deep in thought. Yes.
I find it very funny though, the idea that people, I mean, by the way, I tend to agree, but that it's now a beautiful color. It's like, we're sorry, it's not gray anymore. You know, it's just a funny comment. It's not usually something you expect, you know, when you're talking about something becoming beautiful, that is like, oh, I kind of miss the gray.
Yeah. Oh,
and I do. I'll be honest. I kind of miss the gray.
Yeah, the Instagram has just nonstop. I had to turn off the notifications because it would just be, yes, no, horrible, love it, can't stand it, how dare they? And I'm like, okay, it's a color. They'll change it in 5 years if it lasts that long, but it does look amazing in person. I know Rebekah talked about how the castle and the colors now kind of fade in with Big Thunder, but when you see it in person, it will come out much different.
Okay.
I'm
interested to see the difference in person, and then to also see the difference after it's had some Florida sun.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that, you know, by the time they finish it, hopefully it'll be complete by opening day on the 11th, because we're moving. Like, I took pictures at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I took pictures at almost midnight, and they were still working on it. So they're working to get that done. But that was the view out my window of Cinderella Castle and Tron and Space Mountain. I could see the entire park, but it really was like that old commercial that we all remember of the little girl opening up the sliding glass doors, and there's the castle right there in front of her, and she just cries. And I was like, yep, that's my view right there. I
like a little girl.
It wouldn't be the first time. So the resort, and that's the sunset. I think I probably took about 30 different sunset pictures and kind of submitted to you guys of like, which one's best. So I went with that one for our main picture. Cool. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And, you know, it's sunset, and apparently the Sahara sand that always blows through is here. That really helped it that night. But the crane is there. Like, it was there all day. I took a picture the next morning where there are people up on the different turrets painting and getting everything ready. So the castle, beautiful. The hotel was amazing. We were talking to one of the rec people out at the pool, and they were telling us of the different training they had to go through, including a full new way to perform CPR. Because it's not just the breathing tube. It's the breathing tube and a filter, and then something above that and something above that. So, you know, there were 5 lifeguards at the pool and a rec person. So if anything happened, I've never felt safer in a pool. But I can't stop talking about how amazing the cast was. They went above and beyond. The last day I had the Wave, which is previously a plate service or a buffet. The buffet, as with all buffets, are closed currently. So our server was telling us how it was his first day back, and he's a talker, and his wife was so ready for him to go back to work just so she would stop talking. He would stop talking to her, and he would sit at our table and talk to us for 10 minutes. And he's like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "I'm looking forward to talking to people too, so it's no problem at all."
Right?
For those who can't remember, there's a before and after.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, you can see on the 17th, they've already touched some of the areas on the castle, but on the 22nd, it's all that rose goldish, they're calling it, but it doesn't really come out as rose gold.
I'm also interested to see how this will impact the mapping stuff. Like, you know, was this base color and maybe whatever materials are in this paint, will we notice, will there be some sort of visual difference to us when we, you know, catch what magic memories, you know, I guess those aren't going to be around for a while, right? That's part of the not happening stuff. I don't even remember. Yeah,
Once Upon a Time and Happily Ever After, you know, none of the nighttime shows are going. And I was having this discussion that, you know, we're so used to the old days where fireworks would happen at 9, and then at midnight or 1 o'clock at Disneyland, we'd have the announcement come across of Mickey and friends saying good night and, you know, get out, but you can, for your convenience, you can still shop for an hour. So is that going to be the kiss goodnight? But who knows what it'll end up being.
It'll be interesting to see what's different. Hey, Doobie, do you remember that time we were playing cards by the river and we didn't realize the park had closed and security came by and told us it was time to leave? And then as we were walking out of Sleepy Beauty Castle, all the music stopped in the park. We were like, oh, this is really creepy.
Jeremiah, by the way, in the current age, are we sure we're getting a kiss goodnight? It's not just like a distant wave?
That's what we don't know. I think it's going to be the distant wave.
I was going to say social distance kissing. I don't think that's a thing.
But at the same time, you think about the last day that the park was open, where Josh and the characters were up on the train, and it was a huge crowd right there. I mean, so will they do something like that, or will it just be a get out? I'm sorry, that's not very nice. Please get out. The last thing you talked about was the bus. Oh, there's the Mickey waffles.
You don't have to talk about it, but I think we all need to see it right now. Okay, we're good.
So Disney Transportation, the only thing that was running at this time was the buses. This is the bus station at Disney Springs. They had the social distancing markers there. When you get on the bus, wow, you're right on top of it, Doobie. Good job. They set up the thick cardboard partitions. I mean, those partitions are not the plexiglass. They're more of just so you can't touch. Because if you notice, I'm guessing the next one will have numbers on the seats. There's no, go back. No.
I didn't include
one. Go to the next one, Doobie.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes. No. You can see the seats have the "Don't sit here," but
why do you keep changing it? It's right there.
On the seats that don't have the "Don't sit here," they're numbered. If you in the way back in the bus, that's number 5, and they're different sections. The 1 is to the right, the 2 is to the left, the 3 is to the right, and then on the other side of the partitions, there's 4 that it's just 2 on each side is marked as 4, and then the very back is 5. So when you got on, the bus driver is like, you can only sit where it's numbered. So they've done a great job with the social distancing. But the next slide, this is how the handholds are literally zip tied together. So they made it so low touch points. You can only sit on the bus. There's no standing. And I want to say with the total number, it may have been about 25 people could sit there. So, yeah, the resorts are starting small, but 25 people on a bus is going to be quite interesting. One of the other things that they didn't have going were the music or the announcements.
Okay.
And I asked the bus driver when I got off the last bus, like, what's going on with that? Apparently, they've been switching over to a new system. And let me state that this is all from a bus driver. So we all know what that means. They were switching over to a new system just before the shutdown because they've been having problems with the GPS that was marking the bus wait times and that kind of stuff. So apparently when they stopped it, they shut down the entire system that included the music and the announcements. So hopefully that'll be complete or back up by the time the parks and the resorts open.
Okay. I wanted to ask about something that you shared, Jeremiah. You shared a picture of a plate for your mask at the Wave.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was very clever and delightful hospitality service over there. Did they specifically tell you, hey, and here's a plate for your mask?
They did. Our server came up as we sat down, welcomed us. They have papers with QR codes on it. That's the menu. If you can't get the QR code to work on your, yes, Jeff, bus drivers know all. If you can't get the QR code, they do have paper disposable menus to bring out. But he brought over the little piece of paper that had the breakfast QR code, and then he set down 2 plates and said, "These are for your masks." And later in the meal, he asked, like, "Is this just something you guys just started?" And they said, "Yeah, the first day we didn't really have any idea of what to do, and then we all kind of put our minds together and said, why don't we put a plate on the table for the mask?"
It makes so much sense because dishes in a restaurant go through extreme heat and hot water. Just they're washed in such a thorough way versus just a guy with a certain kind of towel on your desk in between on your table in between people. To me as a consumer, I thought that is really nice that I'm not sitting at a table that, although it's been cleaned, it hasn't had hundreds of masks sitting on it throughout the day.
And that's been one of the things I've had conversations with the different servers, like, what do we do with our masks? Do we put them on the chair? Do we put them on the table? If they're the little purse holds, do we just hook it on that? Nobody had any answers, but the Wave was the first restaurant that I experienced that in.
Very cool. I'll be interested to see if that moves on to other locations or if that stays something special and unique to the Wave.
If everyone else catches the Wave.
Very good.
So
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Before we close out, I have a question for Mike C, because he's just sitting there and I know he wants to speak. Yesterday, you told me that when you get to Disneyland, finally, whenever that is, you want to do Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run and Pirates of the Caribbean. So let's get to something good. What's your third attraction you can't wait to do?
Well, actually, as I pointed out in our Slack chat today, Laughing Place apparently does not have a video of Splash Mountain. So now I think that's going to be number one. I'm going to charge up the old GoPro and have that ready to go. As soon as I walk in the park, I'm sure I'll cover whatever we need to cover first, and then I'll head over to Splash Mountain and get a nice GoPro video of that before it goes away.
Awesome. I'm excited about that. Jeremiah?
So this will win me brownie points with you, Doobie. I actually made the statement a few days ago that the first attraction I'm going on as soon as the Magic Kingdom does reopen was Splash Mountain. Like, really? that wasn't even like I want to go there. And just like with Mike, I feel bad because I've recorded so many different parts of Splash Mountain, and apparently I've deleted all my videos of that. But we will have GoPro videos of both Splash Mountains right away.
Excited for that.
Very nice. Very nice.
And mostly I'm excited that you're not going to waste your time on Pirates. So I appreciate everyone taking their time here to do this. I'd like to invite everyone to come back tomorrow. You can do that by making sure you like us on Laughing Place, follow us on Twitter, or subscribe on Laughing Place YouTube. follow Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell, like, however you do it. We'll be doing a live Star Wars talk tomorrow with Mike C. and Benji Breitbart. I'm not sure what's going on in the world of Star Wars, but I'm very excited to find out. And then also
Tune in tomorrow.
So that'll be tomorrow at noon Pacific time. And then on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, myself, Rebekah, and Gideon will be doing Disney Trivia Live. So tune in there on YouTube only so you can play along live with us. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It is.
And, as you can see, we're wrapping up our live content here on Laughing Place. So make sure you follow us on all 3 platforms so you don't miss a thing, because there's so much going on in the world of Disney, and soon parks will be reopening and there'll be that much more, and we'll be there. So thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
I'm almost there. I found it. Okay. Oh, confirm.